Hi everyone, today we're going to build a Thumpstar 250 with a 230 frame. It's going to be a great bike. It's actually my bike. I can't wait to build it. So the steps we're going to go through are very simple to follow, and by the end of the video you should have a good understanding of how to build a bike and feel safe that your children or yourself can ride it. It's going to be my bike, so I can't wait to ride this thing. But today we get to build it. Okay, we'll get the tools we need now to start unpackaging the bike. A set of cutters and a box cutter or something really sharp. So you'll find they have two plastic strips that come around the carton that hold it all together. So you need to just cut those, bang. It's always good to give it a bit of a stretch when you're cutting it. It makes it a lot easier to cut through like that. That's beautiful. So once those are off, we can go around the bottom of the carton and just check that there's no attachments, like there. We'll pull all that out, and then we should be able to lift the top of the box straight up and off. Sometimes they do get stuck, so in that case we can just undress it like this. So once the cardboard is off, you're best to flatten it and get it ready to be recycled. So with all your packaging, you want to make sure that you separate it and that everything gets recycled. All right, next step we've got to do is take a lot of the fittings off the bike that are in there. So hanging with zip ties and bits of steel wire. So this is the point where I will use these, and I will do this before we start unscrewing the crate away from it. So we've got everything out we can before we undo the crate. So when you undo this stuff, you want to make sure that you put it all together. So we're going to just come over here and put it here for the time being. These are the front fork arms. Just cut the zip ties. I try to recycle everything, including the zip ties. So make a space for your plastic rubbish and keep your zip ties. They come in really handy. I use a round head set of pliers, so when I'm actually cutting it, I'm not in jeopardy of cutting any of, of scratching any of the actual pieces of the bike or any of the parts that come with the bike that we're taking off. So I've built over 250 bikes in the last 18 months, so it's been a big part of my life. The first one I built, I was absolutely terrified because it took me about 6 hours, and I thought, I strap-loaded it out and I thought I'm never going to be able to make money out of this business because it takes too long to build. Now I've got a lot better at doing it, and it will take probably around 4 hours for a father and a son or a father and daughter that have got, or a mother, that have got really good sort of skills mechanically and understand motorbikes. If you don't, it's probably best to get your dealer to assemble it. Beautiful BSE alloy rim. That comes over here, that's the front wheel, we'll put that there. Now when you're cutting the steel off the bike, it's important that you cut, if you cut up here, you've got to cut it again. So it's best to get in the position and cut it once and just get down near that frame, and if you have to pull it out a bit to get at it, pull it out, but you're best to cut it where the frame is like that. You would need a basic knowledge of how motorcycles work and how everything sort of comes together. So you'd have to have a bit of a mechanical mind. But it's a great thing you can do with a father and daughter, father and son, mother and daughter, mother and son, whatever. It's a great family thing that you can do together and really learn about the bike while you're going through it. These are your front fork arms. Just put them there. There is a few areas that are quite difficult to deal with. You would require like a bike lifter or two people because they can be quite heavy, particularly the bike we're going to build today. It's a large bike. So you will need all the tools. So it's starting to feel like it's pretty much released now. We can start undoing the bolts on the crate and yeah, get the crate off and get started building. Just about to undo the crate, so I'll grab a size 14 socket in the rattle gun and a size 14 spanner. A 12 actually at the back of it. You hit them quick and they all come out, so I just basically drop all of them and then I pick them all up at the end. Really crucial that you get you actually get all of the bike bits out of the box at the initial part when you're taking it apart. So you put all them neatly on a table. That way you will be able to find all the pieces that you'll need and that we show you throughout the video. All right, well, just got myself a zip tie bag now. So yeah, I'm going around and pick up all my nuts. So you've got a nice clean workspace. These nuts are great, they've got lock ends on them, so you don't need washers, they actually lock into the bolt. They're actually really good nuts and bolts. So that's about it. There's one more here, a couple more here, I'll just grab those and we'll be done. All right, then take the plastic off the bike. As you can see, Thumpstar goes to a lot of care to ensure the bikes are kept in pristine condition when they're delivered. Now there's some more unpackaging we've got to do, so we'll quickly get in and do that, take some of the stuff off the bike that we can, make it a bit lighter before we have to put it on the stand. I won't do the foot pegs yet because they're quite handy having them up in that position while we're moving the bike. You've got your headlight, put it over with the other accessories for the time being. So everything is together that you take off. Be very careful you don't scratch your bike too when you're taking this packaging off. So I try to get rid of as much of it as I can before we even move it, so there's nothing sticking up that can hit the bikes. So what we'll do is, we're going to have to build the suspension on this bike, but before that we'll just get some of this is the front mudguard under there that's been packaged under there. We'll leave the handlebars where they are just for the time being, because it's important we get them up and around and the wires in all the right positions before we put the fork arms in. There's been a couple of bikes I've built myself over the time, and I've got to the end and there's missing bits, and as I've gone through I've been a bit skeptical about how the things are put together, and yeah, and I've found every time that that's happened that I've found a piece in the bin, or it's a couple of bolts have dropped under under a cabinet or something like that. So it's just really crucial that you get everything out to start with. The first box you would have taken out of the frame when we started undoing it before is a box that holds all of the parts that you'll need to complete the bike. And it also offers spare parts, like there's a number plate even though you get a light. So you got the choice of going motocross or enduro with that. You get a spare air filter, which is really handy, obviously. There's your pad for your front. There's your manual. I think it's important to point out inside the manual, on page 5 is the actual the assembly of the motorbike. So it goes through all the steps that you're required. So actually it's page 3 to page 5. It goes through all the steps required. These are basically the steps we'll take you through today anyway. And then, so they're the bits we're going to need to build the bike. And then all of this is, apart from that, and all of this now is just all spare parts that Thumpstar does for their customers that no one else does. And there's stuff that you break, like levers, there's foot peg, adjustment bolts, and all the stuff you need, the springs, everything you need to put in, spare nuts and bolts and washers, cables, clutch cable, another lever. There's actually a really nice looking, something you can attach your cargo to that sits on the back, a nice little rack there, so that's good as well. So, all right, what we'll do is we'll isolate the stuff we're going to need to build the bike, apart from, and then we'll put all the spare parts aside. I've been a lifetime collector. I've been collecting bikes my whole life. I've got over 100 at home that I've collected, and they're all sort of relate to something with me. But even just having one or two of your old bikes, people are into that now. But what they're more into is being able to use those bikes. So the growth of the like the likes of Thumpstar has been significant for my business, because people now, the quality of the bikes is impeccable. They're very much upmarket bikes, and people can use them, take them straight out and use them. All right, we're now in a position where we can actually take the bike off the crate. So I'll need some assistance here, so if I could just get Les to come and give me a hand, that would be great. First thing we'll do, mate, is we'll just turn the bike around on the crate. Oh no, let's lift it off. We'll lift it off then. You've got it. Yeah. Beautiful, mate. And then we'll get rid of that. Take that out there. You want to get this in, mate? It's a bit lighter, right at the bottom of the triple tree. The bottom one's better. We'll put this right up in the middle of the stand like that. Beautiful, that's fine. Okay, we'll just have to spin this bike around now, so we can actually, because we start at the front of the bike and we work our way back with the build. We actually we'll spin that around so we can get good access and good view to the front. Make sure it's back evenly where it should be on the rubber, and then you're right. So first step from here is just getting your handlebar parts that you need to put your handlebars together, and then getting your handlebars up in position before you've put your fork arms on. That way you can always correct the wiring before the fork arms go on and they're locked in there. Yeah, just very gently, because this is where all the wiring is involved. Just come around, watch all your cables. So we're looking at bringing all these cables through the middle, except for the brakes, which we will have to get out now as well, and they'll go in on top of it. So your front brakes come around like that. Your front brakes do come down through there, so make sure your front brakes are hanging down, and then one loop over. So we've got the cables in all the right positions, and then these two bolts, they just drop straight into the top of the triple tree there, and we get a washer and a bolt and we do those up and lock it into place. If it's not done correctly, the accelerator cable can be stretched, and as you turn to go around a corner, it will pull your accelerator cable, and then it will make your carburetor go, and then you will have all sorts of issues. So it is extremely dangerous to not have the wiring harness set up the right way. So it's crucial that when you're doing the handlebars, that you unfold it nice and neatly, and that you can tell the manner it needs to be unfolded by the way that the wires are rolled up, and get it up into that top position. Leave your handlebars up there, don't put them on yet, and then just go through and put your wiring on. So whatever comes from this side will go into the other side, and everything needs to go down and between the fork arms under the triple tree. Everything needs to. Okay, so what we've done is we've got two little metal sleeves that come with your nuts and bolts, and also two 17mm nuts that go on the end of the bolts that hang off the end of your handlebars. That goes through your triple tree. You get your drill and you snap tie it up, bang, done. So in the long cardboard box you'll find two fork arms. Very nice looking fork arms, and yeah, good, really nice. These will be beautiful on that bike. So yeah, so when we look at the fork arms, we just take the packaging off those. Make sure you put it down on a nice soft spot where it's not going to get damaged. Beautiful. Now, one of the fork arms will come with the brake assembly part for your hydraulic brakes that go on the front. That will always go over here on the left side of the bike. So I will always start putting on the fork arm from that side. This is important as well, that when you put your fork arm in, that you have all of your wiring in the correct positioning. So once you put the fork arms in, you cannot move, it's hard to move it again. So what I'd like to do is, basically, I hate to go back to the wiring, but it's that important. So before you put on your fork arms, again, you've got to make sure that wiring is right, because if any wires slip outside the fork arms, they're in the wrong position, you're going to have issues. So number one thing is, I always make sure I've put a little bit of lubricant on there, whether it be a bit of silicone spray or a bit of grease or whatever. That protects the fork arm as it goes up through the alloy triple trees. Yeah, so that can scratch. I've seen a lot of bikes where it has scratched the fork arm. So I always unloosen the bolts as tight as unloosen them as right the way out. Put a bit of grease or a bit of silicone spray on your fork arm, and then gently get under it and ease it up very gently and nicely, and it should slip in beautifully for you. Just to save it from so beautiful, you don't want it getting any scratches on it. Your bolts are already undone from the factory in the box, so then you get your bike in position so you can slide that fork arm very gently, straight up, straight through to the top on the other. There. I always like to have a little bit poking out. If you're a bit shorter, you can actually poke it right out and you actually get a bit of reduction of height in the front of the bike. So at this point, that's about exactly where I would like it for myself. So we'll just start doing up these 10mm bolts. Just done one up down the bottom, so that should stay there in position. I'll just go get the 10mm bit and we will do them all up. If it doesn't go in, what I would do is, there's 0.005mm of space between these things. There's nothing, and when they tighten up on the clamp that's on the triple tree, it should be tight as it goes up. That ensures when the bolts are done up, it's super tight, because you don't want that coming off. So sometimes, and there has been some bikes where it is very hard to get through. So what I do at that point is remove the bolts from the bottom of the triple tree clamp, and then I get a wide handled flathead wide screwdriver, and then slowly turn that so you're opening up the gap a bit more, and it will slide through easily after that. You can actually see that you want that to close up evenly like that. And yeah, obviously that's quite tight, that's not going to go anywhere. So you repeat the same on the other side. Good bit of lubrication, and then very gently again, get the triple tree into the best position for yourself. So we're just slipping up here. That wire needs to go behind, that cable needs to go behind the fork arm. As you do your fork arms, put your fork arm in, do make sure that you do not totally do these bolts up until you've put your other fork arm in. It can make it very difficult if you do it up, so we'll just do it up gently now that we've actually got this fork arm into position. Heights are right. We can actually get this one in. That one's closed up nice. And that one's closed up nice. Now we'll just come around and hit these bolts, and the fork arms will be on. Just make sure your heights are right. You've got to have the same little bit of the fork hanging out, so they're same on both sides. So the wheels go on straight. All right, they're done. So next step is putting the front wheel on the bike. In your spare parts, you get an axle, a very solid one, and your front wheel. So at this point, I'm going to need to release the brake a little bit. Get that bit of black plastic out there, sleeve gone. And then you'll get your brake. Make sure that your brake caliper comes around in front, and then you'll need to get your size 10 again, which I've just put over here. I'll go grab that quickly. On your brake caliper, you'll notice these two big chrome mounting bolts. So where they go is, they come off. Let's get you a drill to get those off. All right, we'll come around this side. Those two holes, we've just taken the two chrome bolts out of. Come around down here, around that side of the brake. Put the distancer in between the sleeve, in between the brake and the bracket there, and then we just push it all the way through. There is a thread on the back of the brake caliper, but we'll just do that one up gently like that. Ensure that your two washers stay on the back of your big nut. So same thing, straight through the assembly, through that, and then find out where your thread is. There it is, I just felt it. There it is. A couple of screws, then you get your impact drill, give it a couple of hits. That's perfect. So there's your brake, ready to go for your wheel. There is a little rubber, a wedge that's in between the two pads. So you do not want to touch the brake and squeeze it in at any time before the wheel is actually on, as you will close those two pads up and you'll have to take all the fluid out and re-bleed the whole system. So that can be quite arduous. Thumpstar is important to me. There's a few reasons. Thumpstar's got a lot of credibility. They've been around for 16 years in this market, so people know the brand. They're very supportive as far as online support goes. I get quite a lot of customers that didn't even know my shop existed, that have gone to the Thumpstar website and seen the products and seen that I'm a dealer, and then came to the shop, and now they're coming here buying bits and pieces and what have you, parts for Thumpstars, etc. So yeah, so the support, even the guy that I deal with down at national level is he's over in Perth, but he's very supportive of anything we want to do. We've got our big 10mm Allen key, which we're going to need just to do up the other side with our axle. So this system works with these lock bolts, which I've already undone. They're 4 10mm bolts that go down into the assembly and actually lock this in place. It's important that you don't use that to pull the forks arms together, as you will lock up your suspension and your suspension won't work. So all you need to do is just, when we get this in the system, in the hole there with the wheel in place and the space is right, we just need to ensure that we just do this up just not very tight so it doesn't affect the fork arms. All right, so what I always do is take that off, put that piece there, that's the next piece, so they run in order. That's how it goes. I will just grab a bit of grease, we'll put a bit of grease, make everything slide a bit easier on this. That's enough. So just rub that grease around your axle. Comes with a bit of grease, but it's always handy to make sure you make life a lot easier, and it's actually lubricating as well as keeping it safe from the outside, from the weather. So at this point we'll now get our wheel. We need to ensure that with our wheel we have adequate space in there for the disc to roll to get in between those two brake pads. So this piece here can actually fits inside goes in there and fits in like that. So we can lock that one in and get him in position. And then it's important now that we're just trying to get our eye over that and get that brake in position, slide it in there. Can be a bit hard, but just got to work it a little bit. and get it in there. So now I have a position where I can actually get the axle through. So I'm pulling that through. Then we come over to our other side where we have our other little sleeve or spacer, whatever you want to call it. Put that in position while it's outside of the axle. And then we will slip it in position to put the axle all the way through. There we go, feel like it's coming into place. So just make sure your other sleeve is over the axle properly, like that. And we can put it in position, and then once we get to here, there's quite a larger bit of the axle that you need to get inside that hole. So let's get that in there. There we go. We'll have to go get probably a mallet to put through that. Oh no, here it goes. Just this fork arm over here, I'm very close. There we go, so just put my eye over it, smash it in, and you get this bit of thread here, the one that your big Allen key fits into, and yeah, just start screwing that up. Make sure that that's all the way in it can go. Generally can line up pretty close to that edge, looks nice and neat. So we just do up our other Allen key. Won't go too tight on that. As I said, I do not want to compress these fork arms, so they won't work. So it's basically just done up on a bit of a light tie up there. Got a nice roll, and just ensure the brake is working. Let's get this over here. Take a couple of pumps, it'll feel a bit soft, but it will grab in. So just give it a few gentle pumps, and then you can feel your brakes. Beautiful. So that grease, that beautiful grease, look at that, nice. That grease is helping that wheel get around beautifully. All right, now that you're happy with where that wheel is, everything's locked in, it feels secure, brakes in the perfect position. We'll now lock these bolts down. I'll do the inside one on both sides first, and then I'll do the outside one. Voila, done. So while I'm down here, I'll take out these 4 size 8 bolts underneath the triple tree, and this is where we put on our front mudguard. So these have got little, the front ones have washers on the bolts. The back ones seem to have a little sleeve, so the holes must be a bit bigger on the back. All right, it's time to put on the front mudguard. So, as I said, we work our way through from the front to the back, and yeah, we're getting close to finishing the front part, certainly. All right, so there's 4 size 8 bolts that you've got to take out of the bottom of the triple tree here. 2 of those have got a proper, like a sleeved washer there. They go on the back, so I'll always just put it up here, get in a position where I can see the holes. Find the hole in there, and then just put a couple of tiny little threads in, so it just stays soft. We do not want to do these bolts up yet. We need to get the number plate or the light on there beforehand, so it all fits into place. Then we do it up and it all slots into place nice and snug. So same thing with that second bolt. Just do it up a little bit, keep a bit of loose. And we've got to find our front ones. It gets a bit harder because you actually can't sneak and look at the holes in them as much anymore. So you just got to try and find it in there. So you just put it up there and you'll feel it. Seal it up a little bit. That's the last 8mm bolt with just the washer again. We're doing the 2 front ones. So now there you go, that's got our front fender on, and we're just about to tie up the number plate or the light. For this instance, I think we will use the light, just so we can show everyone how to attach the wiring and stuff that's needed. Yeah, so with the light, we've got to cut this off as we go through, but you'll find yourself there's just a port that comes out of there, so it's very simple. And you've got your little wiring harness down here, which has all your wires in it. It comes up from certain parts of the bike, and you'll see this jacket here, that little one there. So I'll point that out better for you in a moment. Whoops. So we've got it's a 4-pin plug, and this is the male part, and the female part is right there. So you can see if you just open up that little opening of the black rubber seal that goes around everything, and get that one in and put that plug in very gently so you don't hurt the bars. It's a bit tight down there, there's a lot of wires. So you'll know it clips in when you feel it clip in the top there. At this point, we can just, you can either just sit here for a second, because I've just got to take this top bolt out here, and then this steel bit goes on top of around the top of your light here, and it goes in position. So these 2 bolts at the bottom of your light, they go straight through these 2 little rubber lugs here. So we put them in there like that. Before we do that, we're just going to bring that wiring harness right up. The rubber plug, you want to cover all your wires, so you've probably got better access to do that now than what you would later. So put all your wires and pull them up like that. So now that's plugged in, we can cover most of the seals and the joiners with this. So that goes in like that, and you just do up the zip tie like that, and that keeps all that nice and sweet in there. So then we've got our 2 bolts in there, move the wiring out of the way so nothing affects the wiring as you come back, and then it's just a matter of us attaching 2 bolts to these 2 points here, which will attach to the front and lock everything in place. After that happens, we can then do up our number plate so it doesn't affect this while we're trying to, the light, while we're trying to put that on. So with this light, basically you get your screw, and this bit here will have to go around this rubber bit. So there we go. So your nut goes through the rubber hole, and then this goes up onto this, so because it's very hard to get to, so you can compress that a little bit so it actually fits in nice, tight, so it holds up there. So it's a bit hard to get it on, but it's certainly worth a while as far as trouble goes. So we can just make sure all of our wires are nice inside there, and we just come up and put our bolt in the hole and do it up. I'll go get the Allen key I need for this, about a size 6 I think. I believe this is it. Let's get our Allen key, and this doesn't need to be done up massively tight. You just want to feel the rubber compress, so it is nice and tight, but you've still got a bit of movement. If it hits anything, it doesn't get damaged. Well, the option is you get a racing plate, or you get a light, an enduro light. both fit the bike beautifully. I prefer the number plate because I'm going to be using it more on a motocross track, more so than on a out enduro riding. So, however, I've always got the light there as an option to use. The number one thing to think about when you're doing it is that you don't put your mudguard on until you're finished, and that you use the bracket on the bottom of the headlight. Okay, so we're at the final part of the whole front end build. All we need to do now is to ensure that our cabling is secure. So, need a Phillips head screwdriver just to undo this clip here, which is on the front here of the fork. Just put that in place like that. Let's get this on here. Get it nice over the holes. That's it. You don't need to go into nuts on that. Just needs to hold the cable nice and tight in there, making sure you're coming this way, not through the wheel. Then the last thing we have to do is this cable has to come through here. So let's put that on. Take that off. Take the bolt out. Put it over. Bolt back in. Put it in position. Get whatever tool you're using. Turn it to the forward. There you go. Put that up there so it gives a bit of protection. Done. Ready to go. All the cables clear. Everything's in. All right, finished the front end. Everything looks great up there. Now we need to just obviously make sure that the fuel cap goes on. We won't put fuel in it yet. We'll wait till we finish the whole project. So we just put that on. It's really crucial that you keep this hose on the top of the fuel cap. This is a breather, so for you people who don't know, so the tank, it doesn't expand and crack. This actually breathes and lets it, not so it doesn't expand too much, and also keeps the water out. So it's crucial that that is in that part of the triple tree and everything's nice and neat there, and that's done. Okay, we're at the part of the build now where we're going to actually put all the rear suspension together. One of the exciting things about this bike is the triple rear linkage suspension that it has, which gives the bike lateral movement when it's going up and down, not just straight up and down. So when you get it, just make sure this little sleeve, because these can be removed when it pops out, which mine just did. Just make sure you pop that one in, and what do you know, it's popped out again. So we'll just click them into place, hopefully. All right, that's in place and that's in place. So what I'll do now is I'll just demonstrate how we put this on. It actually goes on like that. So your widest piece of this linkage is actually the first piece that I'll put on the two widest bars, the these two silver drop down support bars. So I'll get that in there nice. It's nice and smug. You'll know if you got the wrong one, because it wouldn't be nice and smug. And then get the hole nice and lined up like that. Get the big bolt that is supplied, and then slip that all the way through like that. Now we don't necessarily want to do that bolt up yet, because we want to keep it sort of a bit loose so we can try and best get all of our pieces into place. So the next one that goes in is that I normally put in is this linkage up here, which goes the shorter one, but it's quite wide still. It goes up onto the rear stay of the bike, and it takes the other long bolt straight through the axle there like that. Might need a bit of caressing because you're trying to actually, this is going to hold the weight of the whole bike, so it's very tight. Okay, we're really getting near the pointy end here of this bike build. So we've got our two main bolts in, secured to the triple linkage here. The last one we do is the one that is actually attached to the spring. We've actually found perfect height for that bolt and that hole through just adjusting our stand height. So we just lift it a bit, and on this side you'll find a little metal piece that actually stops that from turning, this little bolt here. So this is the last bolt that we use, and that one just should slide straight through here now like that. And now we can start just we'll do up the nuts of the triple linkage. Now you don't ever do them up way too tight, they need to be able to move. So crucial that when you're doing the bolts up, you just don't do them up like as tight as possible. That's it. Now once they're done, so we've got our rear linkages in. We just go and then hit the bolts. We do up those 3 bolts. Now the stand's the last piece that we need to put on the bike to make the assembly complete. The spring is really ridiculously tight. So what I do is I get it on my vise and I just stretch it out and leave it like that for an hour or two. Just stretched out, you know, probably 10 mil, a bit, you know, just a tiny bit. So then you've got a bit more, it's a bit more easy to put it on. So then when you get your spring pulley, you can just actually get it to where it should be. Because yeah, I'm pretty strong and I do a lot of these, and I've had trouble to pull them back without doing that. So you will get the spring out, which that's the spring. There's a bar in the back here, which you can see, which is meant for this stand. It pokes towards the chain. So you hook the long end on there as such. Then you put your stand, which goes on that way, so that points at the back. So there is an opportunity here now to get this and actually pull really tight. And then while it's there, try to find center. And then when you get the center as close as you possibly can, get the bolt and try to get it in and across, and then do it up. So there's a thread on in the other side. You've got to get it spot on so you get it through. Here it goes. So I always did that up just by hand to start with, just to get it rolling. And now I'll go get the size 17, do that one up. So when you're doing it up, I like to do it up nice and tight so it's not loose at all. And then it tightens, it doesn't feel like there's any slack in it. That's about it. That's perfect. Once we've done that, we just cut this other zip tie off, releasing the peg down like that, and then pretty much done. A couple of other things you've got to check is check your chain tensioning. It's perfect at the moment, so you should be able to put 2 fingers into the chain like that, and that's right. You will have to service this after a short period of time because the chain will stretch like any chain does. So the last thing now we need to do is connect the battery, and then just take off all the decaling covers, and then we're complete. Okay, so while we're down here, we've just finished the foot peg and the stand. We'll go underneath the back mudguard here. Right in the middle, you'll see a circular depression out of the back guard, and there'll be a size 10 bolt there, a nice chrome one, and a washer that just fell down. So we just basically undo that bolt and washer off the nut, and then pull that seat back out of this little clamp here and that one, and that's that So we'll put that back on there because that's the nut and washer that goes on there when we do it, when we finish. So we're just now putting the battery, connecting the battery to the bike, which is the last step you do. You do not want electricity running through the bike as you're building it, so you're better off to do this last. So this bike comes with a nice a rubber spring there, obviously, which keeps the bike tight when you're riding it through tracks and over rough terrain. So with the battery, this side is the positive side, this side is the negative side. The red wire is positive, the black and green is negative. So all we need to do at this stage is use these bolts, connect this one to this one, that one to that one, and then we should be right. We'll then put the rubber back over and we'll be complete. What we might do to put this one in is just actually get the battery out or level it up a bit, because we need to get these little flat bolts. They slide in under there. So you'll see that one will slide in straight in there under the negative, and then this one straight in there. Have a check so you can see straight through your holes, straight down. So we'll start with the positive. Cordless drill and just gently do that up, but as you're doing it up, make sure that you want this in a position where it's going to sit nicely. So when that all goes down, I think back around there is nice. That's a nice position for the wiring. And then we'll put the rubber head back over the top of it. So just a matter then of letting the battery ease back into position where it was. Just gently putting down your wires, like putting them down so they don't get interfered with, like the fuse. And then put your wires where they're comfortable with the locators. That goes straight on there like that. So we've got our cover over our battery. Our battery's fully connected and sealed. All we've got to do now is put our seat back on, which, while it's off, we'll actually take the plastic off it. And now we've just got to get this located into there. We need our hook going in there, and then we'll worry about our screw after that. So pushing down and forward, get our locators in nice, very nice. We train a lot of kids. Over the last 18 months, we've trained over 140 children how to ride a bike. Part of what we do here is when you buy a bike, we ensure that you can, the person who buys the bike can ride it. So it just goes down, it's part of the sale that we do here, and it's a really good add-on that we do, and it helps people, makes us feel more comfortable that they're riding the bike like they should, and it takes about 20 minutes. Last thing I've got to do is, one of the fun parts, is just taking all the covers off the decals. I always do this last because I don't want to damage the decals as we're going through. Just be careful with your finger. I'm getting really good at it, but just be careful you don't lift up the actual decal. You're just taking off the cover. And you'll see the bike transform into a sexy, beautiful girl that they are. Thumpstar, bang. Quite like this fluoro, it's bloody, I'll never lose you on the track with this. Okay, so yeah, I'm keeping this bike and I absolutely love it. I love the fact that it's 250cc. I love the fact that it's compressed up. It's got the smaller frame. It's got the 230 frame, which is really exciting. Plus all the bells and whistles you could ever wish for. Just going to take it off the stand now, and then let it wheel it for the first time. Feels beautiful. Feels like a quality, beautiful bike that it is. Put the stand down. There we go. So yeah, just got to put some petrol in it now and take it to the track. Give it a flogging.